special guest who has sort of become a legend with warehousing for NAV and Business Central. Everybody, please welcome Mark Hamblin from Inside Works to the podcast. How are you, Mark?
I'm good. It's a good thing I didn't have a mouthful of coffee when you said I'd become a legend. I would have spit it all over my keyboard. And
Hello, everyone. We've got a jam-packed podcast for you today. We're starting out by what some would say as going back to our roots by drinking a Danish-style beer as we bring you the latest Business Central news. Then for our BC feature segment, we'll discuss dimensions and how to use them. And finally, for our featured ad segment, we're chatting with Mark Hamblin from Inside Works about their new product, WMS Express. So in the words of the famous boxing judge, Mills Lane, let's get it on.
Over 200,000 businesses running this.
On
the fat part.
Or fat, what did I say, flat? Sorry.
If any of the operations that you're doing require the use of an outside processor or subcontract vendor, that is not supported with assembly.
Don't be afraid to talk to your partner.
Today, we're drinking Arrogant Bastard Ale.
I want to know why Jim picked this beer over the other one.
Because I really think it resembled, my personality more than anything else.
Level 3, Knuckles has been dispatched. He's on his way.
I think one of the benefits and detriments all at the same time is the visibility that it gave us into our actual data.
Welcome to another edition of A Shot of Business Central and a Beer.
Ken brought in today's beer of choice. So Ken, how are you and what are we drinking today?
Michael, I'm doing great. Great to be back with you as always. It's the end of August here, heading into September. We've got a few weeks of summer left.
Yeah.
Been a beautiful summer, nice and warm.
Yeah, especially the last couple days.
I think everyone's been enjoying the warm weather. We've been very busy, working as usual. And I thought we would give a special shout out to all of our friends that we have out in Denmark.
Yes.
And so I went with Carlsberg, Danish-style Pilsner today.
Nice.
So some people may be saying, well, wait, aren't you guys are in the U.S., right? Yeah. But why do you have so many friends in Denmark? Well, Denmark is the home of Navision software, which was sold to Microsoft in 2002, then was rebranded as Dynamics NAV, and then rebranded again to Dynamics 365 Business Central.
All right. And I think it first came out in 1987 in Denmark, or Copenhagen. So we're technically celebrating its, 33rd birthday today?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and there's still many people that are active in the NAV or now Business Central community. I mean, people, employees that work at Microsoft, they're still part of the Business Central development team, partner organizations, ISV or app development shops, as well as others who have moved on to work directly for end user organizations.
And I find it funny that even to this day, there are a lot of people that call NAV or refer to NAV as Navision.
Absolutely. Or Business Central, right? I mean, maybe now that's changing a little bit with Business Central. Right. It's very different. But yes, we will actually go out and talk to people for the first time, and they talk about Navision.
Yeah.
And it's funny. It hasn't been called Navision for, 15 years,
right,
10 to 15 years. But yeah, it still has that legacy. And I think that the reason is because, obviously, we're big fans of Business Central. It's solid. It's great software, and there's a lot of people out there that are fans. Mm-hmm. And those people that once you've worked with it, you want to continue working with the product.
Yeah.
And so there's still a lot of great old Navision crew and partners that are still active.
And I think a reason why a lot of these people are still fans is because when they jump on an old version, it's continually evolving. So they're just growing as their business is growing. They're growing with it, and they just keep using it and using it. And once you're a fan, you're always a fan.
Yeah. So let's crack these guys open here. And I think you would although today, you know, Carlsberg it's a macro brew. It's not a craft brew like a lot of the other ones that we've been drinking. But once we get into the history here in a minute, you're going to see that early on in the late 1800s, Carlsberg was kind of a significant craft brewer of their day. So here, cheers.
Cheers to health.
So it is a Pilsner, founded by J.C. Jacobsen in Copenhagen, Denmark, in the late 1800s, named after his son Carl, and the hill or berg that the brewery stood on at the time. So
nice.
Yep. So what do you think?
I actually took a second sip already. I like it. I really do. It's okay. So I'm not a crazy beer guy, but to me, it's a better version of Miller Lite.
Yes. Right. So
it doesn't have the aftertaste that Miller Lite does. It's just.
Yeah. So before we get into history, so let's talk a little bit about that. So why you say it tastes kind of like a good version of Miller Lite?
Yeah.
Well, it's because it's a Pilsner.
Right.
So you know, what is a Pilsner? Well, a Pilsner is a type of lager.
Okay.
So there's lager beers, and then there's Pilsners. And lagers are just beers that are brewed at low temperatures. And a lager can be pale or yellow. It can be amber or dark.
Yeah.
So this is a yellow or pale Pilsner, a light or a lighter Pilsner. So that's what this is. It's a pale lager, basically, is a Pilsner.
Yeah, I mean, for summer, it's a great choice.
So what are some other popular Pilsners that are out there? Well, here's just a few. Budweiser, Pabst Blue Ribbon, Coors, Miller Lite, Corona, Pacifico, Heineken, Amstel Light, Stella. All of those are Pilsners.
Why I like it.
light yellow lagers.
Yeah.
Really.
It's really a good beer. I mean, it's, what do they say? It doesn't have a lot of head on it, I guess. I haven't poured it, but it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
It's really.
Yeah, and I think, you know, all those beers I listed are Pilsners. So the differences between all those goes down to the types of barley, right, or hops or quantity of hops they're using, and the quality of those ingredients.
Right.
No,
it's definitely really good. I would actually buy this beer and keep it stocked in the fridge at home.
Yep. So I thought this is a first ever, but we're gonna have a Stump Michael question
on beer
in the beer segment here. And the Stump question is: you said you noted right away how these are like large cans. Mm-hmm. We're drinking these. We got a 12-pack of 16.9 ounce cans. It's about $13 or $14. So
price.
Pretty good price for the pretty good value for the quality of the beer, I think, and the quantity. Agree. So why are they 16.9 ounce cans, Michael?
Oh dear God. 17 sounds like a bad number. Somebody's had bad luck with it. I don't know.
It's because 16.9 fluid ounces is 500 milliliters, or a half of a liter, right?
Okay.
So it's it's a European, so it's all metric.
Yeah. So 500 milliliters is more common.
That's
right.
That's the size sizing in Europe. Yeah.
Well, Cannon, probably what? 1 for 7 on Stump Michael questions.
There you go. Yep. And it was interesting. I really enjoyed kind of researching this beer, which I did not expect.
Yeah.
Right. But I started looking at it, and I think you looked at it a little bit too. And one of the most noteworthy things that I found is that so J.C. Jacobsen is a guy who founded it originally, late 1800s. He actually founded also an industrial research lab. And what was noteworthy about it was that it says, and this is according to the website, whatever they discovered at that lab, he shared with everyone. So related to the beer, they actually did all kinds of studies and research on yeast.
Yeah.
And they kind of pioneered this yeast that they use, and he then shared it with everyone else. Because, and I quote, "There's nothing to fear from your competitors when you brew probably the best beer in the world.
I wonder if you would have the same philosophy if you were still around today.
Probably not.
Probably not, right? Because it's a lot easier to copy it and distribute it and package it.
So yeah, though although he's sharing all this stuff with them, they I think his competitors that said were not very fond of him because he set his prices so low. He felt like it was his obligation to brew this beer and sell it as cheaply as he possibly could.
It sounds like a true beer guy.
My kind of guy.
Yeah, exactly, right? He's just in it for the love of the beer.
Yep. But it was kind of all, so I'm like reading and I'm looking at this and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. They built this whole industrial research lab to figure out how they could brew beer better. Well, it actually went way beyond that. Actually, in 1909, that lab actually came up with the pH scale.
Yes.
Which measures the level of acidity in a product. And they also did pioneering research on proteins, amino acids, and enzymes, all kinds of stuff, again, that they shared, and has now just become part of everyday, information.
Everywhere, yeah. So what I kind of found interesting was, taking it back to 1867, they had their brewery, and it suffered a massive fire. But instead of, packing it in, I guess, let's say we had a fire recording or whatnot, he took that opportunity to modernize the brewery by installing a cooling system that improved the quality, which led to a dramatic increase in sales. So this guy, J.C. Jacobson, was pretty much a pioneer for beer in every aspect that you can think of.
Right.
He was just about making it and making it better, and he loved beer. So,
yep. And it even says on the can, actually, probably the best beer in the world.
Yeah, probably the best beer in the world.
Well, I'm not sure if everyone on Beer Advocate agrees.
I tend to think they're biased towards Pilsners. If it's a Pilsner, it's kind of considered garbage beer to everybody on Beer Advocate, right?
I think you're right. I think you're onto something there. Because the ratings are all, you're right, it seems to be like everyone lumps all of those together into a meh.
Yeah, basic beer that we've had always.
It's beer, it's forgettable,
it's nothing special.
it's okay, but it's not the best beer in the world. I saw one of those comments.
It's not crafty enough.
Yeah. So some of the highlights on the ratings, always colorful descriptions of the beer, especially for this word, which like you said, it just tastes like a good beer.
Right. It's really what it is, yeah.
And but yet the colorfulness of the thing. So it tastes of hay, rock sugar infused bread dough, and caramel.
I don't get the rock.
You don't get
sugar
the rock sugar infused
bread dough.
No.
I don't get caramel either.
You do have that bready kind of the wheat, the barley aromas of earthy wet bread, a touch of rubber and lemon flower.
Oh my god!
And then this guy or gal, I'm not sure, tastes like artificial green apple skin, tart, followed by honey, flaked corn, white bread, green pepper flesh, and some dried grass.
Did you pick
that up?
No, you know that person sat there for 25 minutes trying to write that one sentence.
I love it. That's just classic.
Flaked corn.
What is flaked corn? I mean,
I have no idea.
How about, is it not corn, but flaked corn?
Yeah.
Very different.
It's over, they take it over like a cheese shredder. Cheese shredder.
Don't confuse flaked corn for corn. Very different. I get it, cornflakes, but
rubber.
Rubber. I'm not picking up rubber.
And what was the other one? Artificial green apple skin.
Yeah, right? You eat green artificial green apple.
Is that a wax apple?
Right? Yeah. Never indulged in one of those myself. So I say we'll come back later and give the rating. But so far, man, so good. Kudos to J.C. Jacobson and team for putting together a solid beer.
Yeah. Now, to me, I mean, I remember being a younger lad, tasting a sip of beer with my father at like the age of 6 or 7, and this is exactly what it reminds me of. I can't exactly say when the craft beer craze came into effect, early 2000s maybe.
Late 90s was probably when it really started.
Yeah, so this reminds me of all the beers before that.
Yeah.
Just a true regular man's
Yeah,
beer.
because most domestic or even imports and most beers, mass market especially, most of them were mass market. They were all lagers and a lot of them pilsners.
Yeah.
You just saw the list, right?
Right.
Coors, Miller, Bud, PBR.
Yeah.
I mean,
pretty much
all the
everything I
Corona.
remember anybody drinking
Yeah.
up until the
There
craft
you
beer
go.
craze. So
The popularity of Pilsner, and apparently people, right, that they thumb their noses.
The new generation hates
I
it.
guess. Yeah.
all right. Well, next up we'll jump into the shot of Business Central. We've got some interesting news, so stay tuned. Back for the shot of Business Central, one of the most famous segments. Not too much news this turnaround for this episode, just because Microsoft's probably busy getting ready for the 2020 release wave 2. But there were some platform hotfixes that were released, some application hotfixes that were released with the 16.4 update, and there's also, you could run a container-based development environment, which is good to know from 16.4 and onwards. This is basically where Microsoft's going to stop producing Docker images and instead publish builds as artifacts. So let's see what else. There's some good news about Business Central browsers. What do you know about that, Ken?
Sure. So they're officially, going to make it official that Chrome and Microsoft Edge are the preferred browsers. Internet Explorer is officially
Done.
going to be done, not supported. I actually logged in. I attempted to log in to Business Central using Internet Explorer, and I received a message telling me that was not a supported browser.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to still do things, though?
No,
Really?
it stopped.
So I think it said, on April 2nd they were going to retire it,
Well,
2021.
Officially, maybe. I don't know.
Officially.
But I actually got an error. It just would not let me proceed with logging in. It just says you must use a supported browser or whatever. So
It makes sense, though. I mean,
right.
I don't even think Internet Explorer is getting updated anymore
No,
anyway.
it has to be a secure,
Yeah.
reliable, modern browser. So it makes sense. And Edge, it's not as if Microsoft isn't providing a Microsoft browser to use.
Mhm.
They are, but just
Yeah.
a newer version of
Right,
Microsoft
you can't use
Edge.
the legacy Edge.
Right. Yeah.
So in our notes, we got a blog post about it. We'll post the link to that. And what else? Oh, big one. Directions North America this year canceled, which is the December 1st through the 4th in Orlando.
Yeah, it was supposed
I'm
to be.
not sure why it got canceled.
It was supposed to be, I think, originally early May.
May,
I would
yeah.
Say.
Right.
And that kind of got pushed back to the first few days of December, and then just recently they kind of finally pulled the plug and said, "All right, let's regroup." And actually, the 2021 Direction Partner Conference had already been scheduled for April 2021. So they're kind of just saying, if you've already registered, you can just roll your registration forward and maintain that same price for the 2021. So that's the Directions Conference for all Business Central partners.
Now, are you surprised? I'm kind of surprised that they didn't offer a virtual option. They decided to completely just skip it. I know that every other conference has seemed to have gone virtual.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to say I'm not terribly disappointed that there's not a virtual option. I mean, especially the Microsoft Partner Conference, right? I go, and we've been, you go to these conferences for years, and it's, maybe, I don't know, 600 to 1,000, maybe 1,000 people attending this, which is a relatively small conference. You see a lot of the same people. You enjoy talking to the same people, hanging out, socializing, and networking. And, and that's really what, especially at a partner conference, what we look forward to most is collaborating and talking to other partners to see what they're doing. So, I think April is virtually right around the corner now at this point.
Yeah, on to bigger and better things in 2021.
Yep.
Oh, crazy. And then I know that you wanted to talk a little bit about device licenses for Business Central.
Yeah.
You tried it out. You've got some interesting things to say
Yeah,
about it.
we've had a few clients recently who have had requirements for the use of device licenses. So I thought we would just share some of our findings on this.
Yeah.
So to kind of recap, so for Business Central, we've had for a while now. You have your full user, which means you can log in, you can enter stuff and post transactions. Then there was a Teams user. You could log in, you could read any data you want, you could run reports, and you could just edit existing data, but you couldn't create new transactions or post transactions. So now there's a third, as of the last release came out, there's a third type of license called a device license. And the device license is for that middle ground where we have users, the scope of what they do is really limited. Maybe they only do one thing in there, but that one thing involves editing data or posting transactions. So that's where the device license comes into play. And where it can be used is with an app. So if you have an app that's been developed to work with Business Central, you can utilize a device license. A good example of this is LS Retail, right? They have point of sale machines, registers, point of sale terminals, right? Where all they're doing is checking users out and processing invoice orders and invoices, right? But you have to enter transactions and post transactions. So you can use the LS Retail front end user interface with a device license that's tied to that specific device to allow the user to post those transactions. And different users can share that workstation, and they can do everything they need to do, but it's at a lower price point license than a full user. So from a market competitive standpoint, right? Or the other example is a shop floor. Maybe you have 20 terminals out across your warehouse and shop floor, but all those people are doing is maybe moving inventory and doing receiving or consuming inventory. If you have an app that's been developed to do those things and integrate with Business Central, those, again, all 20 of those workstations can have device licenses.
So the device license then is really was really created, I guess, to save the customer some money instead of having to buy individual user license for everybody who has to enter something into the same computer.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and you go, look, it's whatever the price is for a full user, right?
Yeah.
It could be $100 if you're a manufacturer. It's hard to justify that expense for 20 licenses for the shop floor when all they're doing is maybe doing inventory movements and consumption entries, let's say, or time entries, right? So that's why that's there. And the one thing, and as we test this, we actually tested, can I assign myself a device license and then log into Business Central?
I would think yes.
Well, I've stumped you again. Actually, no. So if a user has, and I think you knew the answer to that, if a user has a device license assigned to them, that user cannot log into Business Central via the browser client or the app. So it's specifically designed to work with an app that you might get on AppSource. And that development partner who's built the app, right, has written that in a way that it utilizes the device licenses.
Yeah.
So
it's Microsoft's way of saying, or Microsoft's way of making sure that nobody's gaming the system.
A good way to
what
put
it
it.
is. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Right. So that was, I don't know if that's news, but I know that it was news that the device license came out a while ago, and this is maybe just some follow-up information related to that.
Definitely good news. All things that people want to hear. But speaking of news, I think that is about it for this segment. You got anything else?
Not for today. I think it's the end of August. We have not yet seen the preview
For 17.0?
2020 Wave 2 release or 17.0.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that early September we'll see that. We just checked it. It's still not available for sandbox environments. So we're gonna keep checking for that, and as soon as it's there, our plan is to check out some of the new features, and then next month we'll have some feedback on some of that stuff that we've checked out.
Yep, we'll definitely let you guys know. So, all right, up next, we're going to be talking about dimensions for our featured segment.
What's a dimension? Hey everybody, welcome back to our feature segment. And today what we're going to be talking about are a lovely term called dimensions. So, everyone always asks the question, what is a dimension, right? People think, obviously, their brain goes to dimensions like length, width, height,
Yeah.
right? But in the world of Business Central, a dimension
Layman's terms.
it's a code that you can set up, and then you can associate those codes with different transactions, so that you can analyze your financial reports based on those dimensions or values. So if you were to think about this, another way that I always look at it is think about like other systems. So not Business Central, but one of our many competitors. When you set up those systems, and a lot of legacy systems are like this, you have to build your chart of account structure. And that chart of account structure is going to have what's called like a primary segment, which says, okay, this is office supplies, computer supplies, sales, cost of goods sold, and so on. But then, and that might be like 4 characters or 5 digits, let's say. But then you'll see like what's called an account string, which is those 5 digits dash 3 digits dash 2 digits. And the 3 digits might represent a department. And then the last 2 digits might represent a region or a business unit or a project code or something. And so that's called like a chart of account string. And those systems, while it's effective, and those that you then can build financial reports by department or by business unit or whatever it is, the downsides of that model is that typically once you set up that structure, that you're locked in.
Okay.
Right? You can't change it because now you're going to have all kinds of history. You're posting transactions to these different accounts. Also, usually those could only be numeric values. So your departments are Department 100, Department 200, Department 300. You also then have to set up many GL accounts because you're required to set up every single combination of every primary segment plus department plus project or
It's a lot for a
business
big
unit or whatever,
company.
right? So you might have, it could be perfectly plausible if you have 200 GL accounts plus 20 departments plus 30 projects, 30 times 20 times 200.
Right. Wow.
You've got thousands of GL accounts,
Yeah.
right? And then lastly, it's sometimes difficult or impossible to implement a new segment later in the future, right? You're kind of locked into that structure, like I said.
Okay.
So what's different about dimensions is that with dimensions, you can actually set up, first you set up your chart of accounts, and that's your 4-character or 5-character chart, like computer supplies, sales, cost of goods sold. Then, for all those other ways that you want to be able to report on your income statement or sales or expenses, you would set up a dimension. And you can set up an unlimited number of dimensions. We have customers with 15 dimension codes
Wow.
that they use for analyzing, slicing, and dicing their financial data. Okay, and what's also a pro about dimensions is that you do not have to set up each unique combination of GL account and dimensions. So you have your 200 GL accounts. That is your chart of accounts.
Okay.
Separately, you set up your different dimensions. So you have your department dimension with your 20 different department codes. You have your project dimension with 10 different projects, right? And then, so you don't have to define what all of those valid combinations are. In addition, each dimension value, so the department code itself that you're going to use, can be 20 characters, and those are alphanumeric. So as an example, let's say your department codes today are 100 is admin, 200 is sales, 300 is marketing.
Okay.
In Business Central, I would say, well, why don't you call your admin department ADMIN, admin, and call sales SALES for sales, right?
You can have
Make
up
it
to 20, right?
make it intuitive.
Yeah.
Why make users memorize numeric codes?
Yeah.
right?
Doesn't make any sense.
When I can make it more intuitive and just call production PROD, or warehouse WHSE or something,
Yeah.
right? You get the point. So that's another benefit. You also can use what's called an indented structure with dimensions. So here's a good example of that. So let's say you want to track within your company, you want to track sales and gross profit by region, and you're going to have every state in the United States defined as as one of those, and then various states will roll up to a territory, and then the territory will roll up to a country, and the country will roll up to a region,
Right.
and then you have your whole organization, right? You have Europe and you have North America and all these various levels. In many systems, to do that reporting on all of those levels, you would have to have multiple codes. One for the state,
Right.
one for the territory, one for the
Which just gets out of hand.
region,
Yeah.
right? And all of those. With an indented structure, when I set up my new customer, all I do is pick what state they're in, the lowest level.
Okay.
And then through the hierarchy that you build when you're setting up that dimension, we now can automatically roll up those to my territory, to my region, to my country,
Wow.
whatever level I want, and I don't have to do anything else. So not only is the user entry simpler, because I only have to enter one field, but I also eliminate errors, and I can't have where the state of Nebraska is in the northeast region. It can't happen, right? Where I have
So-
data inconsistencies.
Do you always have to pick a state, or can you choose what you want? Well, let's just say it's
Yeah.
you're a global company.
You would have to pick a lowest level, yeah.
Okay.
Whatever the lowest level happens to be. Maybe in Europe you only go down to the country level,
Yeah. Okay.
but you'd have to go down to that country level. Now, good question. When do I have to use the dimensions? That's another good thing. You actually can define which GL accounts each dimension code is required on.
Okay.
So, for example, for your sales account, you're going to want to make sure that your customer type, product type dimensions, and territory, let's call it dimension, those are all populated. So users can't post a sale, anything to the sales account, unless they've populated a value in all three of those dimensions. But maybe you have other accounts, like inventory adjustments, where those are not relevant. So for that GL account, you might not require a customer type, for example.
And you're a big fan of having to require something be having the end user choose what dimension is that they want to use, I guess, right? You're not a fan of automating it?
Well, I am. So there are what's called default dimensions. So the example is, let's say, here's an example. You have a customer, let's say, that they sell flooring,
Okay.
right? And they sell commercial flooring, and they sell recreational flooring. So like commercial would be for offices, recreation is like for gymnasiums or rec rooms or whatever, right? So one of the things you could do is you could set a default value maybe on the item itself. So when you set up an item, you say this item is a commercial type item, right? So now every time you sell it, no one has to do anything. And all those sales orders and invoices and credit memos and everything, the fact that it's a commercial sale flows into the general ledger automatically with no user intervention.
Nice. Real nice.
Now, here's a potential issue. Let's say, in this example, let's say that someone at that company decides that they want to set up default product types by customer. Because they go, well, this is a commercial customer. They're usually going to purchase commercial flooring from us, right? Well, guess what? That commercial office building, they also are going to have maybe a rec room or workout room in their building. So you're actually going to sell them some recreational flooring. So what could happen is when you select the customer, it defaults commercial in. Because it goes, oh, this is a commercial customer. Now I get down to the line and I go, okay, they want this commercial flooring here, that's fine. And then I add the recreational flooring. Well, what happens?
Does it error out?
It does not, no.
Okay.
There's what's called dimension priorities, which says, well, which one's more important? Which one wins? Is it the customer? So we're always going to set that to commercial?
Mm-hmm.
Or, no, it's the item because it's a recreational item. So set that to recreational on that line.
These dimension priorities, though, is it like a global thing, or can you set the priorities based on each particular customer?
No, you would set that globally to say,
Okay.
whenever I have this dimension in use and I have a customer and an item, which one takes the higher priority? Now, here's why I would tell you that we very rarely use dimension priorities.
Why is that?
Because when we're implementing dimensions, we want to stay away from any place where you could have a default set on two different types of records.
Okay.
So in this case, what I would tell you is your data in that scenario where you sold some recreational flooring to a commercial customer, I would tell you that data that you're going to get at the end of the day in your financial statements by type, commercial versus residential, is going to be meaningless to you. Because you're not going to really know, well, wait, it says I sold this much of commercial flooring. Well, did you sell it to commercial customers?
Yeah.
Or how much recreational flooring did you sell? We don't know now. So our best practices when we implement it is we say you should only ever have one record type that defaults a value in.
Okay.
So it's either gonna be the product, and that's how we define if it's commercial versus recreational, or it's the customer that defines it. But as soon as you start flip-flopping or changing it or having two different things that it could come from, you really, if you think about it long and hard,
insights, yeah.
you really don't know what you're looking at when you look at $1 million of commercial sales at the end of the year. Because, right, was it who I sold it to or what types of products we sold? We don't know. So that is we are in the weeds right there, my friend, on dimensions.
What do customers find more important, the header dimension or the line dimension?
So the header dimensions are really only used as defaults for how the lines get populated.
Okay.
Ultimately, it's whatever is on the lines is what rules,
what counts.
and that's what gets posted into the general ledger
Okay.
for financial reporting. So yeah, you could change it on the header, and then it'll actually ask you, do you want to update all the lines if you've already created lines, if you do that. But yeah, usually it's always whatever's on the lines that dictates what's going to get posted.
So is there ever an issue when there's, like, let's say, multiple default dimensions set up?
Well, that's where the priorities come into play. You mean for the same code?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say you should never have that situation.
Okay.
Right. So we always tell people, look, okay, so first of all, we say one, only set up the dimensions that you know you're going to use on day one. Right? Don't go setting up 20 dimensions because you think someday you may want to report on something.
Chances are you probably won't.
You're killing yourself, right? And the reason I say that is because at any point in time in the future, you can add a new dimension and set it up and start using it. So you want to make sure you've got all your bases covered for financial reporting when you implement Business Central, but don't overdo it and don't go, well, someday someone might want to look at this.
Mm-hmm.
I would say don't do it.
It's really a key differentiator between our competitors and whatnot. Just because, like I think you were saying, for the competitor, they have to set up everything in the beginning, and it's just always there then.
Yep.
They can't really go back and add to it.
Yeah. Another scenario, common question that we deal with a lot is people get confused. Like, okay, so let's stick with inventory, and we have a product type dimension called commercial versus recreational. A lot of people ask, so well, wait, is this an inventory posting group, or is this an item category code, or should I use a dimension for this? the answer, I mean, there's always some variability in it, but the core answer is use a dimension if you need the ability to analyze your financial statement data in the general ledger by product type.
Okay.
If all you need to do is run sales reports and inventory statistics reports, then you can use the item category code or product group code or whatever it is. But if you need those values to be carried forward into the general ledger, that's when you use dimensions.
Okay.
All right.
Makes a lot of sense.
And then the last thing is, if you're using dimensions, there are built-in tools inside Business Central that allow you to analyze your data, slice and dice your data. Account schedules, analysis views, and analysis by dimension are some of the things that you can use. You can also, there's a view where you can look at your GL account balances and activity by dimension, and pick those different things. So lot of very helpful built-in tools that we always suggest people use to kind of slice and dice that data.
Very, very nice.
One more thing, if you're, this is kind of a, hey, heads up, dimensions are not intended to be used to create multiple companies or separate legal entities within one Business Central company. So you can't set up company A and company B inside of one Business Central company, and because it does not keep your trial balance in balance by dimension. For example, like AR, AP, and inventory are transaction types where it kind of aggregates the entries together, and it doesn't do self-balancing entries by dimension code. So if you do have a separate legal entity, it requires its own balance sheet. That's where you either have to create a second Business Central company for it, or use an app that specifically handles that. Like if you're a nonprofit, it's like the fund accounting solution, or there's a multi-entity management solution that you can use for that. So
I'll tell you what.
Does that give you a little bit of better idea of what dimensions are? And
it does. It can be very complicated. So with that, I think we should go back to the beer.
let's make it less
What
complicated.
what would you give a rating to for this beer?
So my two favorite styles of beer, number one, is like pale ales. So IPAs or American pale ales. Pilsners are my second type. And I love like a Kronbacher is another one similar to this that I like. But I'm going to go 94.
94.
I really like it, yeah. And it's
a lot higher than I thought you would.
A high quality Pilsner.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. A high quality Pilsner. I'm going to go, wow, I can't believe you went 94. Just because I always figured you're a pale ale type of a guy. Or IPA type of a guy.
Yeah, I certainly am. So, but if I can't get an IPA,
yeah,
I go with the Pilsner.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a solid 93.
Whoa,
it's really good. I like
it.
Yeah, definitely a beer that I would buy.
And you can get, like I said, a pretty good value. I felt just hoisting a 12-pack out of the beer cooler.
It's a big.
And these are large, tall boys. These are tall boys.
There's a case of 12.
12,
wow.
12 16.9 ounce cans.
Nice,
a little workout in carrying this over the front of Benny's.
Well, all right. Our next segment is going to be a very special segment. We're going to interview Mark Hamblin from InsightWorks, and he's going to talk about their new product, WMS Express. So stay tuned.
All right, welcome back to our featured app segment. Today we have a special guest who has sort of become a legend with warehousing for NAV and Business Central. Everybody, please welcome Mark Hamblin from InsightWorks to the podcast. How are you, Mark?
I'm good. It's a good thing I didn't have a mouthful of coffee when you said I'd become a legend. I would have spit it all over my keyboard and gone from there. But I'm great. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well, doing really well. And we also have Ken on the call.
Yeah. Hey, Mark. Yep. I just wanted to say thanks for joining us and sharing with us this new and exciting product, WMS Express, and sharing, what it is and how it works with our listeners today.
Yeah, happy to be on. It's exciting.
All right. So Mark has agreed to allow us to ask him a couple questions. So the first question that we have is, can you tell us a little bit about Inside Works and how you got involved with developing apps for Business Central?
I would love to. Yeah, so I actually started in the NAV/Business Central world way back, I think in 2006, where I left the job I was in and got a contract doing consulting type work and just kind of grew into it. But I came from a product development background, so anytime we had to do modifications, we'd build a product and then sell the product instead of billing for a modification. So that's kind of how we started building up our Insight Works products. And the Warehouse Insight, which is the full-blown WMS, that's also partially how it started as well. And then it's evolved over time and turned into what we're going to talk about today. And then as far as the apps for Business Central, our first app was actually a Canadian payroll app, and we built that in 2017, even before it was called Business Central. It was Project Madeira back then, and named it Dynamics 365 for financial. I can't even remember the names, but
those were great days.
It was stressful because we had to rewrite that app, I think, 3 times as their platform evolved. And Microsoft had actually asked us to build that app because of our experience with shop floor data collection. We did a lot of payroll related work. We just never had a payroll system, so we built that, and that's how we got into the Business Central cloud world and the app world and that sort of thing.
Very, very nice. So with that then, can you tell us a little bit about your latest creation, so to speak, WMS Express? Why you built it and who should consider using it and some of the benefits of it?
Absolutely. First of all, the name is tricky. We came up with that WMS Express name, but it takes a while to be able to say it properly. WMS Express. Anyway, yes, we came up with. We've had Warehouse Insight for quite a few years. I mean, we built that. I think the first version that was actually deployed was 2010, maybe somewhere in that range. And then we really started selling it as a full-blown product in 2012 or 2013. So we've got a lot of experience building these handheld solutions and this warehouse management solution. But not everybody needs that kind of power, or doesn't want to pay for it, those sorts of things. So what we came up with was WMS Express, which is a bit of a scaled down version of that full-blown Warehouse Insight product that does the core functions, right? If you talk to somebody, okay, you want to do barcoding in the warehouse, what you need it to do. And usually you get, I need to be able to receive by barcode, I need to do my picking or shipping, I want to pick all the items using barcodes, and I want to do my inventory counts with barcodes. Well, great. That's what WMS Express does. So we focus on those sort of 3 key areas, picking/shipping, inventory counts, and receiving. So all of that is free. If you're on Business Central Cloud, you can install it. We don't even bombard you with marketing or anything. We don't even know who you are almost when you install it. So you install it, you can run it on your phone, you can buy hardware from us, and if you buy the hardware from us, it comes preloaded. You just scan a couple barcodes and you're up and running. So it's very quick and easy to implement and get running.
Very, very nice. Now you mentioned that it's a scaled down version of a WMS. What was it? Insight?
Warehouse Insight, yeah.
Warehouse Insight, yes. So should users engage their Microsoft partner when they deploy WMS Express? And
yeah, it's always a good idea, right? It's always good to sort of get that feedback. Is it the right thing for them? What are the differences? We have a website, wmsexpress.com, but you can kind of gauge what you're getting with the base version versus the paid version. I shouldn't say base version. They're 2 really separate products. But yeah, engaging with you would be ideal, right? If your customers want to try it out, it's not a bad idea to talk to you to get the lay of the land. But it is simple enough that most people should be able to install it, run the assisted setup, and get up and running pretty quickly and easily.
Nice. So are there any other things that customers should be aware of when they consider or choose to deploy WMS Express then?
Really just the scanners, right? So we do actually support both, older Windows scanners. So, one of the things that we say, some customers are coming from an on-premises solution. Maybe it's an old NAV system, maybe it's some other, old system that they're running in Windows or whatever, and they're looking at a WMS solution. And they might be looking at spending 10, 20, whatever $1,000 to go out and get some barcoding capability in their existing system. Well, now with WMS Express, they can use their existing handhelds if they've got old Windows handhelds or something like that. And instead of buying a new WMS, they can actually spend that money on an upgrade to Business Central Cloud, and they get the WMS for free, right? So anyway, I kind of answered two questions there, but the hardware is one of the ones, right? So the devices, if you need devices, you can try it out on the phone. It uses the camera as a scanner, but that's not a good solution in a warehouse. The cameras are too clunky and slow to scan well. But if they need to buy hardware again, you can get it preloaded. You can get devices for as low as $600 that show up ready to go. You just scan some barcodes to configure them, and you're connected to Business Central and running. But that hardware is the only other major consideration, I would say.
Okay. It's definitely sounds like a very intriguing application, WMS Express. I want to pass this on over to Ken because Ken has one of the more important questions of this interview.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So obviously, Mark, we're big fans of Insight Work. So, and we think that the solutions that you guys provide plug, some gaps that exist. Thank you for joining us today to explain a little bit about what WMS is and how it works. But, I would be remiss if, we didn't ask you what kind of beer you enjoy. We're drinking Carlsberg this month in honor of our Danish heritage, being that we're former Navision and NAV consultants. So a nice Danish Pilsner. But do you drink beer, and what's your drink of choice?
I do. I drink pretty much whatever anybody hands me, but and I used to play softball, and when it was my turn to bring beer, everybody would groan because I'd go find Dude beer, it was called, and no name yellow can beer and all sorts of fun stuff. But anyway, I like. I do like an IPA occasionally. Pilsner is good. I have relatives in Prague, so whenever we're up in Czech Republic, we always go visit the breweries and things like that. So.
Ah, yeah, there you go.
Very, very nice.
Pilsner or Kel. All right.
There you go. Yeah.
Very good. All right.
All right. So with that, then we just want to thank Mark again for joining us. We truly appreciate it, and we wish him and his organization the best of luck, and we're going to keep looking forward to new products.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thanks, Mark.
Appreciate it.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Thanks to Mark Hamlin for talking about WMS Express. We really appreciate it. Next month, we hope to try the preview for 17.0 and get back to you with all the new features and how they work and whatnot. And
Michael, what do you say we wrap up this podcast with a little toast here? Let's cheers here. Skål.
Skål.